This program is brought to you by the partners of A Rood Awakening International. Help others find truth. Support A Rood Awakening International today.
From the Jerusalem Council in the Book of Acts to the scrolls of Auschwitz, unearthed after the Holocaust, there's a connection there. More than a connection, there is a plan of God that has been unfolding throughout the ages. And tonight, Michael Rood and Nehemia Gordon reveal that plan and the exciting final pieces now being assembled in a puzzle that will guide us to the end of the age. Tonight is episode 2 of Jumping Through Flaming Hoops. Because it's the end of the 6th day, the sun is set, and this is Shabbat Night Live.
As they take this message out into the world.
Hey, Shabbat Shalom, Torah fans. Welcome to Shabbat Night Live with Michael Rood. Tonight is the second episode of a series that took on a life of its own, Jumping Through Flaming Hoops with Michael Rood and Nehemia Gordon. We had a plan on a whiteboard for this series, but when Nehemia and Michael came into the studio, the Holy Spirit took over and it turned into something none of us could have planned. So stay tuned. You are in for a treat tonight. Also, Passover is coming up in just a few weeks, and only a few tickets remain. So here again, Nehemia Gordon will be our special guest. We're going to learn the connection between the split rock at Rephidim, the rock that Moses struck and the water gushed out, and the pool of Siloam in Jerusalem. If you want tickets, though, you'd better hurry. There's still room, but we are in a smaller venue this year, so act fast. It is filling up. Now, let's see where we are on the astronomically and agriculturally corrected biblical Hebrew calendar. Today is the 3rd week of Adar, as you see on your screen there. And in just a couple of weeks, our team in Israel will be searching for barley to see if we need to add another month to the calendar. But don't worry, even if we do need to add another month before Passover proper, we are still holding our Passover event on March 22nd to 24th, and that will not change, so don't worry about that. Something that is changing lately is the size of our Spanish audience. Things are really booming in the world of Un Rudo Despertar, the Spanish version of A Rood Awakening International. And here to tell us what's going on there is the Spanish voice of Michael Rood, Alvaro Martinez.
Hey, Scott.
Welcome, Alvaro. How are you?
Very good, and you?
Very good. So yes, you are the voice of Michael Rood. You have a studio just off to the side of our studio here.
Right.
Now, in that studio, what is exactly that you do? You don't just do the voiceover. There's a whole lot that you do to bring Michael's teachings.
Yeah, we do obviously the voiceover. I do Michael's voice to the Hispanic community. We also do a radio show that we're doing now. We have our own website, unrudodespertar.tv, and we have the Hebrew word of the day. We have one of our Spanish members, SV. He's fluent in the Hebrew language. He does his own teachings, and so we have a lot of stuff in the Torah nuggets. We have a plethora of things to do that the Hispanic community is gravitating to, and the channel is growing tremendously. So we're very happy about that.
Yeah, you're right about it growing tremendously, because we do our best here on the English side of things to put Michael's teachings up on YouTube, and of course it's broadcast all over the place. And when we put something up on YouTube, it gets a few thousand views and things like that. But when the Spanish side puts up Michael's teaching, the same teaching, they can have up to 5 times the amount of viewers in Spanish. So why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. First of all, there's a hunger in the Hispanic community because of the lack of teachers. Unlike English, we have a plethora of teachers teaching with plenty of materials. Even A Rood Awakening has thousands of teachings online on their YouTube channel. On Spanish, it's much different. There's not that many teachers, not many good ones. In reality, and there's not much material. So when we come out with a new material, people are just gravitating to it because they're hungry. People want to know the truth of the Torah, and they're hungry, they're excited, and I think that's the success of our channel, and I think it's a good thing that we have now going on, and we have to take advantage of that. That's why we're doing the radio show, the blogs, and everything else that we're doing because we know that people are needing it, and we want to be that spearhead movement or channel that is being the first one out there with good material for the Hispanic community.
No, obviously there's a large Hispanic community here in the U.S., but we also have a large contingent in Mexico.
Right.
And in the country where you're from, I believe is number 3, Colombia.
Colombia, correct.
So all those folks there are listening in as well they can. I think that's why we have a large following on Facebook and things like that, because really with the cell phone in hand, sometimes that's the only broadcast television, so to speak, that people get, isn't it?
Right. Unlike in Latin America, unlike in the States, not everybody has high-speed internet. So what are they doing? Through their phones, and we see that through our analytics in YouTube, that they're watching through their phones, and that shows you, again, the hunger that there is and the need for material.
And the most interesting thing to me is that, here in the U.S., Michael Rood seems to resonate to people when they've spent their whole life in church. They have questions now. That wasn't what I thought it was. What else is there? And by the time they get to that point, they're my age. They're 45 years old or older. Right. But the Hispanic community is seeing something different. They're much younger. Right.
And that's because of that, again, it's the material. Some of them are growing in church, just like a lot of people, even in the American side of things. But everybody's, and I think it's a wake up of the Father. The Father's waking up people. He's putting in their hearts that there's something more, and they're searching out. There's more, and the advent of the internet nowadays is what has opened those floodgates for people to come and look. And they're just flooding the channels. And that's a beautiful thing, and that's what we're here for. That's what we want. That's what we want people to wake up to the Torah, wake up to seeing Michael Rood's teachings. But now, unfortunately, because that's in Latin America, a lot of folks can't afford that. They have different lifestyles. Their economies are different. The U.S. dollar to their dollar is different, and so it's up to us Americans to help fund that, to help see the gospel go forward, and that's what we want to promote today. So we just want to encourage you to, if you like what Alvaro is talking about here, I'm very excited about it. I know Michael's excited about it, and if you want to see that go forward, stand with us. That's all we ask. Stand with us, and your donations will help everything that Alvaro and the team is doing on the Spanish side of things. Now, coming up, the second episode of Michael Rood and Nehemia Gordon's new series, Jumping Through Flaming Hoops. This program and everything that Alvaro and, like I said, the Spanish team is doing is only possible with your help. So stand with us, take this message to the ends of the earth in English and in Spanish, and who knows how many other languages to come. It all starts with you right here, right now. So keep watching. Here's an easy way that you can help out and get a gift from Michael in return. Take a look.
Spreading the message of Yeshua was not easy in the Apostles' day, and it's still not easy today. In these tumultuous times, we are all called to stand, as Paul says in Ephesians 6:13. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you have done everything, to stand.
We don't see the signs, miracles, and wonders that they saw in the first century because nobody is teaching what Yeshua taught. Nobody is tapping into that power and taking on the responsibility as a royal priesthood.
Stand is a walk through Paul's early ministry, and it highlights the struggles that come with throwing off your old life and living for Yeshua.
When Jews, when Israelites, when they do not do what they have been called to do, and they were the ones that were chosen by God, the chosen people to be the ones to reconcile the world to God. They were to be chosen and called to be priests and kings.
Stand is an exclusive teaching available only in February. It's a gift from Michael Rood to you for your love gift donation of just $50. Or with a love gift donation of $100 or more, we'll send you Stand plus a silver-plated cup and saucer set to celebrate Yeshua's sacrifice and resurrection.
I want to see some medals, some commendations on you when you get out of the battle. You're going into it and you're being sent into it, and I know that you're going to be able to handle this thing.
Get Stand plus a silver-plated cup and saucer set. Call 800-788-7887. That's 800-788-7887 to make your love gift donation now and receive the Stand collection. Or visit our website at monthlylovegift.com. Hurry, offer ends February 28th.
Traditions that we inherited from Babylon through Constantine have us occasionally with a little plastic cup and a little round wafer in a church service having what is called communion. But Yeshua was not having communion with his disciples. It was the last meal before his crucifixion, which happened at the time the Passover lambs were being sacrificed the following morning. Yeshua took this opportunity to explain something that had been embedded in the Israelite culture for then over 1,000 years. Melchizedek brought forth bread and wine to Abraham, and he blessed the Most High, saying, Baruch atah Yehovah, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, ha'motzi lechem min ha'aretz. Blessed are you, Yehovah, our Elohim, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. Yeshua said, this represents my body, which will be broken for you. As often as you do it in remembrance of me. And so we break this bread and we do it in remembrance of him. Likewise, Yeshua took the cup and he blessed the Most High with that blessing that Melchizedek blessed the Most High. Baruch atah Yehovah, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, borei pari hagafen. Blessed are you, Yehovah, our Elohim, the King of the universe, the creator of the fruit of the vine. Yeshua said, this represents my shed blood, which will be poured out for the remission of sin. I will not drink another drop of the fruit of the vine. You take my cup and divide it among yourselves, because I won't drink it until I drink it again with you in my Father's kingdom. The marriage supper of the Lamb, Yeshua will lift this cup and he will say, L'chaim, to life everlasting. And until then, we remember what he's done and remember that marriage supper of the Lamb. Get ready. Solomon said that it is the glory of God to conceal a matter. It is the glory of kings to search it out. In the book of Revelation, it talks about priests and kings, referring back to Exodus 19. We are offered, if we would keep his commandments, to be priests and kings. And so it is the glory of these priests and kings to search it out. We have with us Nehemia Gordon back with us, and we are searching out some of the greatest treasures that have been hidden. Some of these things hidden by God to preserve it for this day and time, and these are the things being revealed. Good to have you back with us this week.
Great to be back, Michael. You know, some things are sometimes hidden in plain sight. So we were talking last time about this coin that was produced by King of Denmark. Ironically, his name was Christian IV. And Christian IV of Denmark produced these coins that had Yehovah with the full vowels in Hebrew, produced in the 1640s. And on the coin, he also has the phrase Justus Judex, which is a Latin phrase, which translates from the Hebrew Shofet Tzedek. And that comes from a verse in the Bible or number of verses, but one of them, for example, is Jeremiah 11:20. It says, Vayehovah tzvaot shofet tzedek. Yehovah of hosts is the righteous judge. And so, why did this king put Yehovah's name on a coin? And this has to do with the context that was going on at that time in Europe. This was the time of these great wars that were happening in Europe, these wars between the Protestants and the Catholics. And the Protestants in particular wanted to say God's on our side. And of course, the Catholics said the same thing. And when the Catholics would express that, one of the ways they would do that was through art. And they would say, oh, God's on our side. Let's make a ceiling with God as an old man with a white beard, who's touching Adam, right? In other words, they used art and they were representing Yehovah through as a man, right? Because was their artistic tradition. And the Protestants said, well, wait a minute, that's forbidden. And why is it forbidden? Because it says in Deuteronomy, you didn't see a man in the day of the congregation, meaning the day of the revelation of Sinai. And the Protestants said that we're going to take that literally and not make an image of the Father. And so instead they represented Yehovah by his name. Mm-hmm. And what's really interesting is recently a friend went and visited the Bible, the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C., and they have there on display a page from the original 1611 King James Version, and I actually want to say it's from the 1613 reprint. but I don't remember the exact details, but it's from one of the early versions of the King James, and it has this image of the biblical world, essentially, and at the top is, in the cloud, Yehovah, with the full vowels. So you're seeing this in books, you're seeing it on coins, you're seeing it in all kinds of different places, in churches in a lot of places. We talked about that in the Karaite files. All over you're seeing Yehovah's name in Europe at this time. And part of the reason is because of the struggle between the Catholics and the Protestants. So we mentioned this coin made by Christian IV of Denmark. And one of the things I wanted for years is to actually have one of these coins. When I was younger, Michael, I was kind of a coin nerd. I collected coins. Well, this was well beyond my means to have a coin like this, but what I decided to do is contact a mint in Utah and have them make a replica of the coin with the front based on the coins from the 1640s of the King of Denmark, where it says Yehovah, and in the back, the verse from Malachi, my name is great among the nations. Let me read that verse in its context, Michael, because the verse there in Malachi starts in verse 5. I mean, it starts before that, right? But verse 5 is a key verse in this context. It says, V'ne'enechem tir'enna, and your eyes will see, ve'atem tomru, and here he's speaking to the Jews, and you will say, Yigdal Yehovah me'al gvul Yisrael. Yehovah has been magnified beyond the borders of Israel. Meaning at that time, they were in this little province of Judah, and they had a very provincial attitude. And they said, well, Yehovah is our God, and the Egyptians have their God, and the Moabites have their God, and the Phoenicians have their God. And Malachi is coming to them and saying, no, this isn't just your God. He's the God who appeared to your ancestors at Mount Sinai, but he didn't appear to your ancestors just for you. And like you said, the nation of priests, the Mlechet Kohanim V'Goy Kadosh, a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. The purpose of Israel from the very beginning, as Jews understand it, was to be that light to the nations, to spread the glory of Yehovah's name. That was our mandate. It wasn't for us. It was to bring this message to the world, which we didn't always do such a good job of doing. In verse 11, he then has the verse which we quoted before in the last episode. For the rising of the sun to the place of its setting, my name is great among the nations. For my name is great among the nations, says Yehovah of hosts. And there's a little passage in the middle there, Michael, where he says, in every place, incense is burned to my name and a pure offering. And that's really interesting because my Jewish legalism, and I'm going to call it that, looks at this verse and says, what's Malachi talking about? The only place in the world you're allowed to bring incense is at the temple in Jerusalem. And how do I know that? Because it says it in Exodus, right? Or at the time it was the tabernacle, later it became the temple. It says it in Exodus. We understand it from Leviticus, from Deuteronomy. You can only bring offerings at the place where Yehovah put his name forever. And that's not a church in Iceland. That is not some place where they're honoring Yehovah's name in Germany, in Denmark. And I read this verse and I say, Malachi, rebuke the Gentiles who are bringing incense, who are doing things that are contrary to the Torah. But then I realize, wait, this is God's word. And here's my take on this, Michael. Malachi is talking here about God's name is great among the nations, and maybe the nations don't always get it right to the letter of the Torah. But they're doing the best they can with what they have in their cultural context, and they're receiving Yehovah's name and glorifying his name. And that is something that will draw them to the Torah. That is something that draws them to the God of Israel. And yes, there might be some details they don't get right. We were talking last night in your hot tub about how China almost became a Christian country. They had accepted officially, the emperor had converted to Catholicism, right? And they would have eventually gone through a Protestant Reformation, just like Europe probably, right? They had officially converted to Catholicism, hundreds or tens of millions of Chinese and the emperor. And then they had this ceremony, which is at the heart of Chinese culture, called Qingming, where they go to the graves of their ancestors and they bring offerings. And the Pope in the Vatican has all kinds of bones of dead saints.
Right.
So he writes a letter to the Emperor of China and said, I rebuke you. You have to renounce Qingming and stop celebrating your traditional ceremony, or I'm going to excommunicate you. And the Emperor of China said, okay, you know what? I'm going to do one better. I'm going to make Christianity illegal. And it was illegal after that for hundreds of years to be a Catholic, a Protestant. Anything that had anything to do with Christianity was completely illegal because the Pope was trying to impose basically the Pope was the Torah police, right? And I'm not even saying the Pope was wrong. He should have applied it to himself, right? Meaning if it's some pagan thing where you're worshiping your ancestors, why does the Pope have all these bones in the Vatican of different saints that they're coming and burning incense to? But I believe what Malachi is saying is God is that big that he can accept the nations honoring his name even if they don't get all the details right. They're doing the best they can. You know what? You shouldn't be burning incense in a church in Iceland. You shouldn't be burning incense in a church. It should only be at the temple in Jerusalem, in a church in Sweden, in Germany. You should be doing it at the temple in Jerusalem, which has been destroyed, so you can't do it. But they were doing the best they could with what they had. And Malachi and the prophecy, the word of Yehovah, I think is acknowledging that the Gentiles are where they are, they're doing that. And that's why God is so amazing. He meets people where they are. That's what excites me so much about this. You know, I'll meet people, Michael, from all over the world. I met this woman in China. This was my first visit to China before I went to live there for a year. And I was in Beijing and I'm talking to her through an interpreter. And she says to me, she's part of a little house church, which has a very small number of people meeting in secret at the time. And she says, you know, I had this dream and I asked my house church what I should do. And they said, you need to go ask a Jew. And what was her dream? Her dream was she was told to keep the Torah. She was told to do the Torah. And she says to me through the interpreter, you're Jewish, can you tell me what the Torah is? And you have to understand, I had like 3 minutes to answer through an interpreter, which means really like 30 seconds. I'm not sure I did as good a job as Yeshua would have done or Rabbi Hillel would have done. I did the best I could under the circumstances, completely taken aback by the question, not really fully knowing how to answer. But we have this thing where God is doing something with people around the world. And maybe they don't fit my paradigm of the people God is supposed to be giving dreams to and somehow interacting with, but they fit his paradigm, right? He's willing to talk to the Gentile who burns incense in their temple, but who honors the name of Yehovah. That's how beautiful and wonderful this is.
That's incredible. A revelation dream to keep the Torah, and the people there say you need to speak to a Jew, and who shows up from halfway around the world? Right. You are the one that she asked.
Incredible, right? So, and like I said, maybe I didn't give the best answer. I gave the best I could.
I bet you were the best one for the job, or you wouldn't have been sent there.
I did the best I could as Yehovah's humble servant, and maybe next time I'd answer better. But the point is, here's a woman who literally had no idea what I was what this dream was talking about, right?
And this is a Chinese Christian,
in a house church, in an underground church. She knows nothing what's going on. The internet is censored there. You can't go online and and just get. I mean, Google until recently was censored, and even the Google that's going in now is censored, right? So they have they're in their own sort of bubble and have no idea what's going on in the outside world, no concept in many cases. And here she is having this dream. And my paradigm says, wait a minute, God doesn't talk to Christians. I'm a Jew. He's not supposed to talk to people who don't have the same theology as me, who don't keep the same practices as me, who don't eat the same foods as me. Yet she had that dream and came to me and said, help me. What does this mean? And I did the best I could to answer her. And now I understand with humility that Yehovah can talk to anybody he wants to. He can do anything he wants to in the way he wants to. And
wait, just that thing right there. Yeah. You know, the Christians of the world need to listen to this because this applies directly to them, because they would say the same thing about you. God can't, the Christians will say, oh, God can't talk to a Jew.
Well, what do you mean about me? They say that about each other. Right? If they're not in the right denomination, they'll say, God can't talk to a Catholic. God can't talk to a Baptist. Can't talk to a Lutheran. Hey guys, let God be God. Let God talk to whoever and inspire whoever he wants to inspire, because even those who are burning incense to his name in violation of the Torah, but are honoring his name the best they can. And maybe one day they'll come along and they'll understand what they're actually supposed to keep. Michael, I don't think we'll have time to get to it, but I want to have a conversation with you about the Jerusalem Council in Acts 15, because I think this ties in directly to this issue. So I want to table that for a minute and get back later to Acts 15 if we can.
Okay, yeah, okay. I want to do that. Tell us about this, because we actually have
an authentic one, right?
Authentic one. This is from 1644. Right. And give us the background and how this relates to America.
Okay, so let me start with this. This is I hope people can see it, put up a graphic on the screen. This is the silver round, 1 troy ounce of silver that I had produced at a mint in Utah. And it was based on these coins, which I had photos of from the internet, from the 1640s. And it says, Justus Judex, righteous judge, referring to Psalm 9:5 and Jeremiah 11:20 and certain verses in the New Testament. And then in the middle it says, Yehovah, with the full vowels. On the back it says, my name is great among the nations, in Hebrew and English, Malachi 1:11. And I put this out and made this available to people. And we have a mutual friend, John, who heard about this, and he said, I'm going to go get a real one. And he found on a European bidding site, and I shouldn't say this because he wants to be the only one bidding for these things, and I think we just spoiled it for him. But in any event, he was able to get an authentic one, and he sent it off to NGC, which is the organization in America that authenticates coins to make sure that it was real, and he has it here encased. This is an authentic 2-mark coin, which was the lower denomination, and this actually ties into the history of the United States in an incredible way, which I did not expect when I started looking at this and working on this. So, when the United States was founded, we did not have a currency. And the Continental Congress had this crisis. There were dozens of different coins being used throughout the 13 colonies. And they had to make a decision, okay, you merchant, do whatever you want. You decide to take the currency from Sweden and the currency from Holland and the currency from wherever, and you do what you want. But the Treasury of the United States has to have a standard of what currency they'll accept at what values. Well, today, if you want to know the value of a currency, you go online and you check the international Forex, the exchange rates, right, which are constantly fluctuating. Well, it didn't work that way back then. The standard coin that was used throughout the colonies and really throughout much of the world was the Spanish pilar, or piece of 8. That was the standard coin, and that eventually became the US dollar. But we're talking 1776, before the Constitution. So they commissioned Thomas Jefferson to go study all the coins that were being used and decides which ones would be valid to be accepted as official currency in the United States, and he made a list. And the really cool thing here, Michael, is he made a handwritten list that was presented to the Continental Congress on September 2nd, 1776, right? So remember, July 4th, 1776 is the Declaration of Independence. The Continental Congress is still meeting before there's a Constitution, years before there's a Constitution. The war is just gearing up. The American War of Independence, or as the British thought, the rebellion. September 2nd, 1776. This is approved by the Continental Congress, listing of series of different currencies. And I can actually show the people here the page in the actual handwriting of Thomas Jefferson. Michael, I read about this years ago, but as I was trying to produce this replica of the coin in silver, I said, I want to see the page for myself, what I read about years ago. And I found in the Library of Congress, they have this handwritten document approved by the Continental Congress, written by Thomas Jefferson, and it lists the different currencies. And you can actually see here at the top, it says silver coins. It says the pilar, piece of 8, and that is the unit or dollar. And they're talking about the Spanish dollar, not the US dollar, the Spanish piece of 8. And it lists different coins, and it has here the English guinea and various other coins. And later on it says the ducat of Holland, the ducat of Germany, the ducat of Sweden, and the ducat of Denmark. The ducat of Denmark, one of the list of coins that was official currency in the United States when it was established as a nation, essentially even before it was fully established, before the Constitution, was this coin with the name of Yehovah on it. So this was true money, accepted at the time as an equivalent in varying proportions to the Spanish dollar. And I mean, I read that and I'm like blown away. So here you have a king in Denmark. He doesn't know there's going to be colonies 100 years later that will use his coin, but it becomes used in circulation, and it's so recognizable that it becomes one of the coins used by merchants. And they say the ducat of Denmark, that's official currency.
That was September 2nd, which is exactly 2 months after we declared our independence from England, which is 2 days before the Declaration of Independence, the document, was actually signed. But it was 2 months, July 2nd to September 2nd, and his name is made great among the nations.
And in this case, the founding of the nation, the founding of what I believe is the greatest democracy the world's ever seen. This nation that look, and I'll just speak from my very personal perspective as a Jew. Jews were, I call myself half jokingly the wandering Jew, because in 2012 I left Israel and have been traveling around the world teaching and preaching and doing all kinds of other things ever since. And sharing the word of God from the scriptures the best I know how. And I call myself jokingly the wandering Jew. But where that joke comes from is that for 2,000 years, my ancestors were wandering Jews. They would live in a country, get kicked out. Live in a country, get kicked out. Well, how do you kick someone out who's lived there for 200 years? Because you're Jews. You have no rights in this country. We're just kicking you out, move on. And it wasn't until they came to the United States that finally Jews were accepted as full citizens. And it's my hope and prayer that the United States doesn't become like other countries and say, we're getting rid of our Jews. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope and pray. I don't know. Some things I see in the news make me really nervous. There's definitely some scary things going on. And quite frankly, well, I don't know if I should say this here. They're coming from one particular direction, and it's not the one the mainstream media is telling you. The anti-Semitism isn't coming from where the mainstream media is telling you. It's actually the opposite. It's almost like the mainstream media has become a smokescreen for what the real agenda is, this hatred of Jews, which is masquerading as anti-Zionism, but it's really a form of anti-Semitism.
Well, this nation was based on God-given rights, and it is the God of Israel.
Yes.
That is the God-given rights, and this is what our jurisprudence system, our legal system, is based on Torah law.
Well, Michael, it's really based on the fundamental, people talk about the Judeo-Christian ethic. The fundamental principle, from my perspective, of the Judeo-Christian ethic it's in Genesis chapter 1. Where it says God created man in his image. And it says male and female, he created them. So this core principle that God made humankind consisting of male and female in the image of God. And by the way, that doesn't mean God has a big hook nose. It doesn't mean he has 2 arms with 10 fingers. When it says we're created in the image of God, that's speaking about our soul. We have a soul as humans, every human being, in a way that animals don't have. We have that intelligence that God has given us, that discernment. That's what it means to be born, to be created in the image of God. And this is the source of this is in U.S. constitutional law, they call this natural law.
Right.
And this is the source of our rights. Our rights are not granted by a government. We do not get the right of free speech from the government of the United States. We get it from God. And the Constitution of the United States has done something that no other government before and very few since have acknowledged, which is our God-given right of free speech, to defend ourselves and other rights. These are rights that come to us as the founders of the United States established from God himself. And because we are created in the image of God, Michael, I want to talk in the second half about the clash between those who love the name of Yehovah, as represented in this coin, and those in the Western civilization who have hated his name, and what havoc that has wreaked.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you're in for a treat. We continue on right after this message for our sponsors. According to the Continental Congress, September 2nd, 1776, the name of the Almighty on the Denmark coin was official currency in the United States of America. But it's not the only coin that has the name of the Almighty. Is that right, Nehemia?
Michael, it turns out that at this period in history, there were hundreds of coins and medals and what's called jetons that were produced by kings and princes particularly in Western Europe, Northwestern Europe, with the name of Yehovah on it. One of the most exciting of them to me, Michael, is this commemorative silver medal coin that was produced after what was called the Peace of Westphalia. Now, for our audience, if you haven't heard of the Peace of Westphalia, if you know any peace treaty in history, this is probably the most important peace treaty for Western civilization. What had happened is the Protestant Reformation begins in October 1517. Martin Luther, he nails the 95 Theses to the church in Wittenberg, and then all hell breaks loose. The Protestants and Catholic countries go to war, and they fight for over 100 years. Some historians say that as many as half of Europeans were killed in this war. I mean, this war went on. There was actually several sub-wars. One was called the 30 Years' War, the 80 Years' War. But this went on really for over 100 years, this killing back and forth. It was a disaster. It was really the equivalent of World War I of the time, right? But for Europe. And at the end of this just bloodbath of killing each other over being Catholic and Protestant and Calvinist and Lutheran, right? It was all kinds of people killing all kinds of other people over religion. They get together in a place called Westphalia, and they hammer out a peace treaty. And one of the central principles of Western civilization is in this peace treaty. I mean, really, in a sense, this is the beginning of the modern world, the Peace of Westphalia, because it establishes, the Europeans establish, we will never go to war over religion again. They say the wars of religion are over, and there's this beautiful coin. We can show the people here what it looks like. This beautiful silver coin produced to commemorate the Peace of Westphalia, and you see three hands coming together representing the friendship and peace of the European powers. And what do we see at the top of this coin? In whose name and under whose auspices do they make this peace? Under the name Yehovah, in Hebrew with the full vowels, Yehovah.
Incredible.
And it's essentially the equivalent of what we would say today, I'm going to swear on a stack of Bibles. The European powers minting this coin were saying, we're not going to fight over religion again. And I got to say, the Europeans have been pretty good about it. There have been a few exceptions. Famously in Ireland, there were what they call the Troubles, and there were wars in Yugoslavia, the former Yugoslavia, over religion. But other than that, think about that twice, and the war's over other things, right? But specifically over religious sectarianism, there has not been a major war in Europe for 400 years. That's a really big deal. Some people have said that, oh boy, I don't know if I should go into this politics side of it, but there's another religion out there that is carrying out wars and killing people left and right. Hundreds of thousands of people in the last few years. And it's often said, well, they're unique and uniquely warlike people, uniquely warlike religion. And as somebody who studies history, I'm not convinced of that. I just think they haven't matured to the point where they've had their Peace of Westphalia. So this really is the foundation of Western civilization, of the modern world, that we can say, look, we can disagree, we can have misunderstandings, we can dislike each other, but we're not going to go to war over whether you're a Protestant or a Catholic. And it took them a little bit longer for the Jews to be included in that, right? But it was a good start, okay? And eventually it did include the Jews. And it was done under the name of Yehovah. And Michael, this to me is such a powerful symbol, this coin with Yehovah's name on it, because it represents, like I said, hundreds of coins in Europe that were made at this time, in this period, over a period of several hundred years with Yehovah's name. But there's another spirit in Europe at the time. And this other spirit is something we actually see in the writings of Martin Luther. Now, Martin Luther started out when his Reformation against the Catholic Church, and he loved the Jews. But within a period of about 10 years, he turned against the Jews when he saw he wasn't successful in converting them to Lutheranism, and hated them with just a vicious hatred. And part of hating the Jews was hating the name of the God of the Jews. I learned about this, Michael, a few years ago. It was the 500th anniversary in 2017 of Martin Luther's 500 theses, 95 theses, and I was speaking to this fellowship of Protestants and Catholics who were coming together to try to hash this out and what it meant for them. And one of the things they told me about is something I'd never really heard about before, which is the Judenschau. The Judenschau is this motif in European art, if you can call it art. And it's the opposite of the motif in European art that has the name of Yehovah in the clouds with light coming to the world from his name. So the Judenschau is a pig, a female pig. And let me read you how Martin Luther himself describes this in 1543.
Yeah, I've seen that image, but
I'm actually going to
not
show it to the people here.
Okay. I did not see this inscription. I had no idea how Martin Luther was handling this thing.
Right.
And we know that Martin Luther, he drowned 200 Anabaptists because, we have to face it. He didn't die as a Lutheran. Luther died as a Catholic priest. And sprinkling was the way that the Catholics did baptism. Well, the Anabaptists, they were convinced in immersion, as the Hebrew mikvah. And they were convinced of that, and he literally drowned them. He killed over 200 of them. Wow. And then he comes after and so what you read from Martin Luther, it's shocking, but it doesn't surprise me knowing his background.
Now, what the people can see here is a Judenschau, and not just any Judenschau. This is a statue, a carving that's actually in the church where Martin Luther was a pastor. There were two major churches in Wittenberg at the time. The one, the cathedral where he hammered the 95 Theses to, and the other church where he was the pastor. And in the other church,
he nailed the theses on the church that he wasn't the pastor of.
Right, well, I guess they didn't accept him there. And this statue wasn't built by Martin Luther. It had been there for about 200 years at the time. And he describes it in his book, and I'll tell you later the name of the book, written in 1543. He says, here on our church in Wittenberg, a sow, meaning a female pig, is sculpted in stone. Young pigs and Jews lie suckling under her, meaning they're suckling at the teats of a pig. Nothing could be more offensive to a Jew.
Right.
Think about it. For a Jew, who the pig is a symbol for the Jew of persecution, of suffering, of being murdered by the Greeks in the time of the Maccabees, of Hanukkah.
Yeah, and Antiochus.
You could go to secular Jews today in Israel who don't believe in God, and most of them still won't eat pig. And if you ask them why, they say this is the symbol of our people being murdered. Mm-hmm. Right? They might eat shellfish because they're not religious and don't believe in God, but most Jews in Israel that I know who are even secular won't eat pig. And here they're portraying Jews as suckling from the teats of a pig. He says, behind the sow, a rabbi is bent over the sow, lifting up her right leg, holding her tail high, and looking intensely under her tail and into her Talmud. And guys, you can see here in the image, when he says under her tail, he's looking inside the intestines of the pig. I'll use that euphemism. You get the point. And then it says, as though he were reading something acute or extraordinary. This is the rabbi looking inside the intestines of the pig, which is certainly where they get their Shem HaMeforash. Michael, Shem HaMeforash is the Hebrew phrase. Shem means name, and HaMeforash means the explicit. Shem HaMeforash is what Jews in Hebrew call the Tetragrammaton. It's what we call the name Yehovah. The name Yehovah in Hebrew is referred to as Shem HaMeforash. And at the top of the Judenschau, this isn't just Martin Luther's opinion, it actually says in German, Shem HaMeforash, the explicit name. So here Martin Luther is talking about, at the same time there are European princes fighting over this name, fighting under the banner of the name, let's put it that way, and putting it on their coins and honoring it. At that very same time in history, you have Martin Luther, who maybe doesn't even fully understand what he's saying, calling the name Yehovah something read out of the intestines of a pig by a rabbi. Nothing could be more offensive to me as a Jew.
Yeah.
This beautiful, honorable, glorious name of Yehovah, and he's saying that the Jews know what that is, because they read it out of the pig's intestines. And I got to say, Michael.
Go ahead. Well,
I got to say, I did this study, 10 rabbis speak out on the name, and I show that there's 10 and now even more, 19 rabbis as of this recording, who say that the vowels are Yehovah. This is the name of the creator of the universe and the true pronunciation. Some of them say that's what it was in the temple, and others say that's what it will be when the Messiah comes. It will mean the Messianic era in the kingdom, that it will be pronounced as Yehovah. We have these rabbis saying this, and then there's this spirit against that name, the spirit of Martin Luther, who says that comes from the Jewish Talmud. We don't trust that from the Jewish sources. We don't trust this name from the Jewish manuscripts. It's the Judenschau spirit. It's the spirit to demonize the Jews, literally in many cases. To present Yehovah's name as this abomination, when really it's the glorious name that was prophesied about in Malachi that would be great among the nations, the name that would be honored throughout the nations, that would, there's the verse in Amos 9 that maybe we'll get to in the next episode. I want to talk about that, because that can I bring it now real quick, Amos 9?
Go ahead. It just hits me that for anyone now with understanding that who would ever want to call themselves a Lutheran? Understand the background of what was going on.
I don't want to knock
with that.
Lutherans, because the Lutheran World Federation, their official body in the 1970s, apologized for the anti-Semitism of Martin Luther. Openly said, we acknowledge, I'm paraphrasing their words, but my understanding of what they said is we acknowledge that what Martin Luther taught, because he wrote a book called The Jews and Their Lies,
right.
and he set out a 10-point plan there that was then implemented by the Nazis. So the Lutheran World Federation did some soul searching. And they said, we have to denounce the anti-Semitism of Martin Luther. He's our founder. We agree with the basic principle that he was teaching, but whatever he taught about the Jews, we denounce that. So I want to give them credit for that and acknowledge that.
All right.
But here's the prophecy of Amos 9:11. It says, Bayom hahu, on that day, akim et sukat David hanofelet. I will raise up the fallen tabernacle of David. And I'm going to let you talk about that. You're going to let me talk about that next time.
Okay.
But I'm going to try to hold you back because I want to get to something else here.
Okay, all right.
V'gadalti et pirtsehen, and I will fence in the broken breaches, v'harisotav akim, and its ruins I will raise up, ubinitia kimei olam, and I will build her as the days of old. Leman yirshu she'erit Edom v'chol hagoyim. In order, here's what it literally says in Hebrew. This is quoted in Acts, and we'll talk about that next. Maybe we can start talking about it now. I don't know. Leman yirshu she'erit Edom v'chol hagoyim. Literally, in order that they will inherit the remnant of Edom and all the nations. Asher nikra shmi alehem, that my name is called upon them, says Yehovah, who does this. So here we have a prophecy of the nations who are being absorbed into Israel, right? The word there is inherit, right? And some Jews have misunderstood this and said they're going to be conquered. No. They're going to be absorbed into, grafted in. The word is v'nivrechu in Genesis. We can talk about that if we have time. They're going to be absorbed into Israel, into the covenant with God. Edom and all the nations that my name is called upon them. And here we have the coin of King Christian IV and hundreds of other coins produced by Europeans in this period throughout Europe, even in some Catholic countries. I had somebody who went to a number of people who went to the Palace of Versailles and came back and showed me, look, Yehovah's name is in the chapel at the Palace of Versailles,
that's right.
Which was a Catholic country at the time, right? So it wasn't just Protestants. It was people who were searching for the God of Israel the best they could and the best they knew how, offering incense, doing what they knew how to do. And Yehovah refers to those people as the nations that my name is called upon them. They will be absorbed into his covenant, into his people, according to Amos. I mean, yes, it's quoted in the New Testament, but Amos says it. This is a Tanakh message, that this is a message for all mankind. And I feel like we have to jump to Acts 15 and talk about the context here.
Okay.
Because there's so many things, directions I want to go with this, and we don't even have time to...
all right, but we have to say something here. I have to say something because what we're going to do at Passover, the opening of Passover, what we're going to do is get into the discovery you made in the Elephantine
Papyri. Right. Guys, I discovered, and I'm getting so excited, I'm shaking, thinking, you brought this up. And look, it wasn't actually my discovery. It was buried in this journal article that some professor had written in the 1960s. And I just ran into this professor somewhere and was talking with him. And he just in passing mentions that there were Gentiles 2,500 years ago who were living according to the Torah, keeping Shabbat. And I said, what? What? Is this your opinion? Is this your theory? Because professors do that. They have opinions and theories. He said, no, it's written in a papyrus.
Oh, okay. Now, all right. I'm going to have you do this. We're going to do this for the opening of Passover this year.
We can share this actual information.
Yeah, actually show that very stuff. We talked about this a few months ago. When you told me this, it was like, this is breaking. This is breaking because this is an ancient prophecy come to pass. And you actually are going to show how 200 years after Isaiah prophesies this is actually what's taking place. And you say you have the archaeological evidence of this very thing.
We have it written on papyrus from ancient Egypt. We can show you the documents. We can show.
We're going to wait for Passover because we've got a lot more that we're going to do at Passover. We're going to do some stuff in the gospel.
Don't tell them. Don't tell them.
Okay. All right. Go back.
We're going to share something really exciting, something we've been working on.
All right.
And I really want to share it for Passover. Look, the reason I want to share it for Passover is really because, this is what happens sometimes is, we'll share a little tidbit because, hey, we're running out of time here in this episode, and people will take it out of context and misunderstand it. And I feel this is such an important discovery that we're going to share at Passover. It really is an important discovery, especially for your ministry, Michael, and the things you've been teaching. But I think for anybody who really wants to understand what it's going to be about, I can't tell them, we really need to lay out all the evidence, because if we just give them a tidbit, I guarantee you that people are going to take it out of context. And so if we lay out all the evidence, we're going to build a solid case and put it in context. And then people can say whatever they want. Opinion will be left out of it, right? And look, there's always a certain element of these things where you have to decide for yourself. This is my motto, Michael, as a Karaite Jew. Search well in the scripture and do not blindly rely on anyone's opinion. So what we've done is we've put together an international team of people who are searching on the specific topic in the Gospels, I can't even say more. And we're going to present the evidence to people, and they can decide for themselves. This stuff,
manuscripts have been hidden for hundreds of years, and now you're going to present this.
Michael, they weren't just hidden for hundreds of years. I feel like I can't even hold it back.
You have to.
There was literally a manuscript that was locked. Access was not available, and within a very short period of time, it was unlocked. Like literally there was a symbol of a padlock and they said, you can't access this. And within 3 hours, we had access to the manuscript. I can't go into any more of it. It's exciting stuff. We're going to save it for Pesach. Okay. But I want to end with Isaiah 56 because we're really running out of time here. Okay. Isaiah 56 is one of my favorite passages. I've preached on it many times. But listen how relevant this is to Amos 9 and to...
Now, what we're going to get into in the book of Acts.
And in this coin, right, and to Acts 15 and Acts 21, what we're going to get into next time, hopefully. But into this coin, the king, he puts the name of Yehovah. In Isaiah 56, it says, I will bring them to my holy mountain, and I will make them rejoice in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and their peace offerings will be accepted upon my altar, for my house will be called a house of prayer for all nations. That's verse 7. That's all most people ever read. But let's read verse 6. And the sons of the Gentiles who join themselves to Yehovah to serve him. We'll talk more about what that means, sons of Gentiles, next time. Can we do that? But here's the key for me. Ule'ahava et shem Yehovah. And to love the name of Yehovah. To be his servants. So here was this king in Denmark, and he only knew what he knew. He was raised in the Lutheran church, coming out of the Catholic church, and he didn't fully even understand it. But he had this burning love for the God of Israel and for the name of Yehovah, and he put it on his coin to show, I don't know what it is. I don't fully understand it. But in my heart, this name burns, and I want the whole world to know it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a fulfillment of prophecy that we can see unfolding before us in the record of history.
Well, Nehemia, will you close with putting the name on the people?
Absolutely. Yehovah, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come and share this with the people, to learn about how your name was glorified among the nations. Yevarechecha Yehovah v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Yehovah panav elecha v'yichuneka, Yisa Yehovah panav elecha, v'yasem lecha shalom. May Yehovah give you peace. Amen.
Amen. Well, the adventure's just begun. We're going to ramp this thing up, and the whole Passover weekend is going to be a time of great discovery. But until then, Shabbat Shalom. Shavua Tov. Have a good week, and we'll see you back here for a little bit more of the story before Passover on Shabbat Night Live.